Hi people, I've got something I've got to get off my mind today. Cannot believe that this is the thing that's making me jump off the edge and actually start a YouTube channel and start making videos, because there's so many times I've wanted to do this, and this was just something that it finally made me do it. I gotta get this off my mind. Today is July 5th, and yesterday we all celebrated freedom, right? Freedom in the United States, all those fireworks and everything. I hope you have all your fingers still. We're not free. I was working on a project a few days ago. It was a local project, and something I'm going to share in the future, but I came across this website, and it's followthemoney.org, and this map here shows the amount of contributions that were made to each state for candidates in the 2019 and 2020 elections. And I just was clicking around, looking at what it shows and everything. I want to show you this. If you look at California, over $1 billion, okay? $1 billion from companies and individuals paid to candidates in California for their campaigns, and whatever they do with that money, that's another topic. But so $1 billion in California. So in the US alone, now this includes California, it's under $6 billion, and $1 billion of that is spent in California. Okay, so the number 2 state, this is even like mind-blowing. The number 2 state, Illinois, $296 million versus California's $1 billion. Now, why is so much money going to California versus any other state in the union? So I think we all know this. California determines a lot of what happens in the US. And when they start trying to make laws for California, we pay attention because we don't want that stuff trickling out to us. So after I saw this, I was like, what in the world? Somehow I ended up discovering this. The top 4 contributors during that time period, 2019 and 2020, 3 were Lyft, Uber, and DoorDash. That was probably more baffling to me than the amount that was spent in California. How much did they spend? There's 60 million, 59, almost 60 million, 52 million. Now, that comes out to a total of almost $172 million from Lyft, Uber, and DoorDash. Just those 3 companies contributed almost $172 million to campaigns in California. Now, if you just move on from that and drop it, you're weird. Because you got to ask the questions, why? What was going on in California that made them spend that much money in California? And of course I had to know, I had to go find out, because that's a lot of freaking money. Now let me put this in like my frame of mind right now. I had just finished watching probably three different videos in the last week on homelessness in the US. And of course they always talk about California, and they show you all the people living on the streets in LA and San Francisco. And so this is what's in the back of my mind as I'm coming across this, knowing that $172 million is going into the state when there's people that are homeless. There's people homeless everywhere, and it's always sad regardless of where it is, but this is a lot of money. So I'm like, I want to know why it's being spent there, right? So I had to Google what was going on in California, and you may already know what I'm going to say, but there was, now here it says, this headline, it says 180 million, tops 180 million, and the reality is there's probably more spent on it, just because they weren't the only ones contributing to this. The 172 million was just what they directly contributed at that time. So, basically, I'm going to give you the long and short of it. Governor Newsom had some legislation in 2019, and he thought it would be a good idea to make companies like these three and other companies that had contract workers, that they should make those contract workers W-2 employees, which means they would be full-fledged employees of the companies and would be able to get things like benefits, benefits that regular employees at companies would get. And California probably has some laws determining what those are. So he thought that the people that were contract workers or gig workers should become employees so that they can get those benefits. So here's the thing about these companies in particular. Most of the people that drive for these companies are doing it on the side. It's a side gig for them. It's a side hustle. They probably work part-time somewhere else or full-time, and when they need extra money or have a bill, or maybe they do it regularly because they're not making enough money, they can do this on the side and earn some extra money. It's kind of like people who go to donate plasma. Donate's not the right word because they're getting money for it, but it's kind of the same thing. When you need extra money, you have these methods of getting extra money, and that's kind of what these companies do. Now, when you have W-2 employees, that's a whole other thing that's added to your overhead, things that you have to take care of that I would not want to have to take care of if I didn't have to. I've had a business for a couple of decades, and it's just been me. And if I hired anybody, it would be a contract worker, because I don't want to have to deal with all the taxes and all that. I used to do books for a company, and I used to do all that stuff for him. And that's why a lot of companies hire out bookkeeping, because they don't want to have to deal with it. It also saves them money to not have to do that. But the reality is their business is set up so that people can have the freedom to work or not work, or do it on the side, extra income kind of thing. Here's my problem with all this. Aside from the fact that that is $172 million, which blows my mind, the other thing is it's none of Gavin Newsom's business how people run their business. If they're not doing anything illegal, then leave them alone. If you can't start a business in this country and run it the way you want to run it, then we have a problem. Now, here's the thing. So like I said before, California, this is Governor Newsom. I did not elect Governor Newsom in my state. Idiots in California elected this guy. Now, he's making legislation for California that is going to affect the rest of us, because what's going to happen if they had passed this. There's already Illinois and I think New York were looking at doing the same thing. If California passed it, they would be passing it as well. It would trickle out to the rest of us, and this would not be an option to people who want to do it on the side. And the owners of these companies know that if the legislation passed, they would lose a lot of drivers, because a lot of drivers just want to do it on the side. That's why they're doing it. Now, there's a handful of people, and they were probably the ones that got Governor Newsom to even look at this. I'm not sure how it all worked out, and it's not really that relevant. There's always going to be people who demand that they should have, this, that, and the other. And that's fine. But here's the reality. If these companies want to run their business this way, then they should be able to. And if you don't want to work there, then you don't have to. That's called freedom. That's the freedom that we should have in this country. But instead, these companies are having to fight for their right to run their business with their money by sending $172 million to Gavin Newsom. Got a big chunk of it. And then a bunch of other candidates got, I don't know how they did it. It looks like they just split up the rest of it and kind of divvied it out to all these other candidates. And $172 million so that they could keep running their business the way they wanted to. This absolutely blows my mind. Think about this for a second. If you own a business and you have to send millions of dollars to get your way because somebody has a bright idea that they should be able to force you to do it differently, absolutely blows my mind. $172 million could have been spent on, well, you know, honestly, who cares? It's their money. They could buy more properties. They could put it in their savings account. They could give us cheaper rates. They could pay their drivers more. There's so many better things that could have been done with that money. But instead, they're sending it to buttholes in California. God, the more I talk about this, the more upset I get, because I just literally can't. I can't even imagine. Now, you know they got to be making good money, because they're not sitting here crying about sending all, you know, millions of dollars to California. It's a lot of money to me. I'll never have that much money or even fathom having that much money. But to them, I guess it's the cost of doing business, but this is not right. So, it gets even worse than that. Something I figured out today. I thought that was a lot of money. And from this website that I'm on right now, Ballotpedia, there's a link on this article that I clicked on, and this is even worse. So there was another proposition. So Proposition 22 is the one that I'm speaking of, that Newsom, well, I think Proposition 22 was fighting what he was doing. I'm so sorry about the camera. My butt was hurting. Okay, so this one on the top, this is the top 8 most expensive California ballot measures. You're already seeing the amount probably. Look at that. Double what was spent. Now this amount here, the reason it's higher is because this is the amount that was spent on it altogether, including the opposition. So support was 205 million. That comes from other people other than the 3 companies I mentioned. And the opposition was 18 million. So that's how much money was spent to fight it from both sides. This here, twice as much. And look at all this. Look at all this money. Like, are you kidding me? Now, let me talk about this one at the top, this Proposition 26 and 27. This had to do with gambling. It looked like some Indian tribes were trying to legalize, I think it was sports gambling. I don't want to click on it because I'll get lost, but you can look it up if you want to. Basically, they wanted to open up online gambling for 21 and over, and their goal was to help the homeless problem in California. This is actually, this was going to affect California. Well, no, it was going to affect everybody because it was going to be online, but it was going to be in California, and I believe 15% of the money was going to go towards the homeless and mental health issue in California. And if you look over, okay, here's what is even more frustrating. So this much was spent, and look over here, the outcome, they didn't even win it. They lost. The support for it was 301 million. The opposition was almost 162 million, and that they spent $301 million and didn't even win. So what are they doing with this money? This money is going to candidates, and they can't just put it in their pockets. I'm sure they do to an extent. I'm sure they find ways around it, but it's supposed to be spent on campaign stuff, and you know, there's laws with all that stuff and everything. But regardless, the money, I mean, if you think about it, the money is being spent in California. A lot of it is going to media, doing commercials and, you know, getting information out there and stuff, and really it doesn't even matter. The fact is, companies should not have to be forking over this kind of money to be able to run their business the way that they want to, period. This is absolutely ridiculous. And this is not the only industry. This is a case where I'm like, this ain't right. But then you also have, and this is what I was working on, you also have industries that are paying them hush money so they can, you know, do what they want to do and have the people up top in the government that have a say in it, you know, they keep their mouths shut. Every industry does it. Pharmaceutical industry, energy industry, education, everybody pays to get their way. I think we all know that this is happening, but when I saw the amount of money and what was going on in this particular situation, I just can't, especially this is happening around July 4th. I can't believe it. We're supposed to be celebrating our freedoms, and this is one area, just one area in the realm of business and livelihood in the U.S. that we are not free, and something needs to be done about this. I know I'm just blowing smoke. Nothing's going to ever change. As long as the people up top are getting money and they have the power, we're pretty much screwed. And I guess maybe it just pisses me off that the buttholes in California are getting all this money. By the way, just want to add, if you're a conservative or a Christian or a Republican, you would do better to use Uber. Don't use Lyft. I've been using Lyft because it's the app I had on my phone, and my daughter had Uber on her phone. I'm deleting the app because they are a much bigger supporter of Democrat candidates, and I gotta watch where my money's going. So anyway, this is all giving me a headache. If my mind doesn't explode, like I don't even know. I think I'm gonna have to start drinking or something. Anyway, y'all have a good day. Try not to be pissed off about this stuff. Be blessed.